This is always a tough announcement to make, both for your staff in terms of strategy. Talk me through your thinking. 6,000 jobs are to go. Which geographies will they hit? I understand from the announcement that 2,000 of those will be consultants. Talk me through the cuts, the costs and the repercussions.
I think this is actually something that is happening in our sector. This is part of our big transformation that we have now being on this journey for the last 2 years. We've made massive investments in the last 2 years and will continue to do in replacing our core bank system into the digital front and becoming truly digital. And these cuts are really a transformation more than anything else. It's not a cost-cutting exercise. It's about creating a new operating model, which is much more digital distribution, and actually centralizing functions and doing a lot more common. So this is actually creating, in my mind, the future bank, and these cuts are a result of that. And I think this is something which you will see in the whole industry going forward.
Tell me, Casper, is this the end of the job cuts, or is this the beginning of a transformation journey, as you say? Can we expect more from you?
No, but this plan, or this what we're now looking at, we are looking really at the next 3 to 4 years. I think long term, I think this industry and also this bank will have less staff. At the same time as we are reducing staff, we're also recruiting a lot of new staff into areas which we haven't had before, and new competencies. So the industry is changing, and that also means that in the long run, the industry will have less people.
Let's talk about the consequences for the business in terms of your decision to relocate the business. We've written stories, there are press stories, that you're losing deposits, that there is capital moving out of the bank, that customers are leaving. Give me an update in terms of the reality that you see, the flow of money, of deposits and customers leaving Nordea.
I mean, there's a lot of noise in this, and we expected that. We branchified the bank a year ago, and we had the similar reactions in both Norway, Finland and Denmark, where there was a perception that we would somehow move to Sweden, which was completely false. The result of that kind of discussion a year ago did not result into any major losses. And when I look now at the third quarter, and now I look at Sweden, the inflow of mortgage lending is unchanged, actually up somewhat, and I see no difference in deposits either in Sweden. There's a lot of noise, and I think it is my job to explain to our Swedish clientele that nothing is actually changing. We are not leaving Sweden, and nothing will change vis-à-vis our customers, and that's my job to do, and I don't want to lose a single customer.
And I respect that, and I understand the reassurance that you need to make to customers. What the market wants to know is, what have your deposits dropped by in the third quarter, and how many clients have you lost?
As I said, the inflow of deposits in Sweden is unchanged in terms of the trend. And also, I think we have a net inflow of mortgage lending in Sweden in the third quarter. So in the numbers, we don't see it. I don't deny that there would be single customers that would leave. This is emotional to some. There's a lot of populism around this as well. But in the numbers, I don't see it. And we work hard throughout the whole organization to explain to customers that nothing is changing. So numbers, you will not see it. And I don't expect to see it either, because we had the similar phenomena in Norway, Finland and Denmark just a year ago, and that did not impact our numbers.
I know every time we get together, I ask you this question, and you reassure me. It's about the Swedish housing market. I suppose it's the perennial preoccupation of journalists, but also of the world, to know how housing is doing around the world. It's slowed down, I understand, a little bit in Sweden of late. Is there anything provocational in the price moves that you've seen, that maybe you've tweaked some of your lending standards? Talk me through what you're seeing at the front end in that market.
I think it's right. I think there is a somewhat a dislocation here, and a market which is quite toppy. You have seen softness lately. I mean, I think even in the central Stockholm area, there's been softness in the housing market, which I think is actually now healthy that we see it. We've long said that we are more cautious, and hence we've actually grown less than the market in the last really years and quarters because of this reason. But I don't see any dramatic risk of a fall here. But I think maybe a leveling off and a slight correction, which I think is very healthy.
Preparedness for MiFID. I would imagine you spent quite a few committee meetings discussing MiFID, what it means. Are you prepared? What are the ramifications of MiFID for Nordea in terms of costs, in terms of research, and in terms of preparedness?
I think we are prepared. We've invested heavily into this, but it affects really a lot of the areas of the bank, and I think as a piece of legislation, there's got a lot of good side of it, particularly the consumer protection side. But then there's also elements that do concern me, how that will impact the functioning of the market. So I think this is a bold regulation and also bold in terms of potential consequences that we will all only see after the fact. We're well prepared, but the full consequences, I think, is not known to anybody really yet.
And just very briefly, let's close off the conversation. It's about the investment banking side. How are those ambitions developing? If I look at the German landscape, a lot of volatility there in Deutsche Bank and Commerzbank, scaling back by the Swiss institutions in terms of what they're doing. Is this your opportunity, Casper, to effect a more efficient investment banking ambition?
I think we are, over the last years and really many years, we've actually invested in our investment banking franchise and really have moved from a challenger in this Nordic region to a clear number one. And that's a position we intend to keep. We see that across the asset classes from equities, bonds, the fixed income and syndicate loan side. You see Nordea as the leader, and we intend to retain that position as well. I'm very proud of what our team has done and the position that we have achieved.